among him, whatever we call it, says we make our own rule. And Cora Fillmore, was the second wife of Charles Fillmore, in the book Christ Enthroned in Man, she published his works after he passed on. She says, divine imagination is the chisel man wields to mold his inner thought kingdom. Intelligent seeing is a form of divine imagination. And to see intelligently is to behold man in a constant state of keen knowing. God the good is the foundation on which our life is built. Man should see God as the source of his life, and he should see himself majestically springing from that source. Our imaging faculty is quite powerful, as I'm sure we all know. And the thought forms we create, not anybody else, not the government, the opposition, or your neighbor. The thought forms we create in consciousness have a great effect in our lives. We are manifesting in the outer that which takes place in our inner thought realm. So whether we like it or not, whether we're happy with it or not, we are manifesting what is happening in our inner thought realm. In much the same way you do not get mangoes on a lime tree, you will get limes on a lime tree. You will get mangoes on a mango tree. But somehow we think those laws are abridged when it comes to man, and man feels is my mother, is my whoever ancestors, is whoever else responsible for our love. Not so. In truth, we know differently whether we like it or we do not like it. And it is both a sobering as well as a very helpful thought and truth to know that. Sobering in those areas we do not like what we are putting forth, and in those areas where we may like it, something to celebrate and to go further. We know that we have it within us, that imaging faculty. So now I've been reading a lot from a writer, hearing him, who's on YouTube as well, called Neville Goddard. He was a Barbadian, and then he migrated to the United States. He is credited by Dr. Wayne Dyer as having shaped some of his ideas. So this gentleman says, our imagination, God is our imagination. That's a bold statement for him to make even in those days. God is our imagination. And he says there are many states. We would say states of consciousness. He says states, new states of being, whatever, experiencing, and so on. There are many of them. And all of them we are responsible for. We must imagine ourselves and those for whom we may be praying or giving a treatment, whatever we call it. We have to see them not in their current undesirable state, but in the new state, whatever that is, whether it is health, whether it is employment, whether it is health, employment, we have to see whether it is for ourselves or those we are holding in prayer, holding in their life. We have to see them in the state we want them to be, not in the current situation. But regrettably, the prevailing views, and I think that's why they call all these persons who will think that's like that, new thoughts. And it's not that it is new, because nothing is new under the sun. But it is just not the prevailing mindset of mankind. our prevailing mindset is to blame and to complain and to look everywhere else except at the man in the mirror for our woes and so on. Politicians know it a lot. When things going good, it's them. If it's in, when things not so good, it's X, it's Y, it's Z, it's all of it, it's everybody else. So we are, but of course I know I'm speaking to the converted, but we in truth, we have come over that somewhat. But we still are steeped in the human consciousness somewhat. And it's a constant retraining of our minds to get to that state of consciousness, to see only the good, behold only the good, and to bring forth in our lives and affairs, whether it is in simple things or important things, the good that God has created for us. And Goddard says, and people from Barbados will know, my parents are going to, so you know Goddard is a Barbadian name. So he said, he gave an example of sometimes his brothers had visited him when he was in New York, and they wanted to see Aida. Now, you know Aida is, I think, Helga Headley from Trinidad and Tobago, the one I think she won a Tony for that. So they wanted to see it, some new version of it anyway. So he said, for weeks, tickets were sold out. And all the ads saying, no more tickets, no more tickets. But he said one day, when he was very versed in using his imagination, both for himself and to assist other people. So he said, well, his brothers wanted to see this, so he decided, okay, he was going to go and line up for it anyway. So anyway, he went and he lined up in a very long line, although they said there were no more tickets. And whichever line he was in, I think he changed lines at one point. He was standing behind a very tall gentleman. And when this gentleman went to purchase his tickets, not for the Aida, because they said they were sold out, for some other play or musical, the guy gave the salesperson short money. I think he must have given him $2 or whatever, when it was $20. It was back in the day, so $20 was big money. So he gave him a little bit of money, and then the guy gave him the tickets, and the man walked off. But the salesperson, he seemed to have been a young man, he realized when he checked the money, it was wrong. So he called to the man, and the man seemingly was just ignoring him on his way out. But Goddard said in his most imposing voice, he called out to the gentleman, come here. So the man was somewhat startled, so he came back to the ticket salesperson. And the man was insisting that he gave him $20. And the guy, tried his best to say, no, he didn't give me. So Goddard, who was behind the man, said, no, you did not. I saw you. That is the money you gave him. You gave him $3 or whatever. And the man now was not pleased. So the man then had to take out his $20 or the difference and give it to him. Apparently the man who was in company with somebody else, they were actually pickpockets. So, we have scalpers and so they were up to what we would say no good. So his intention was to give short money and get tickets anyway. But now, so as a result of that, when Goddard went to buy his tickets, he told the salesperson, I want 2 tickets, or I think it was two tickets for Aida. And the guy just calmly plucked out the 2 tickets and gave it to him. He says, now they are always, when they tell you things are sold out, they always keep in reserve things for VIPs who may come at short notice. But he said what he had done before he left home, he saw himself getting the 2 tickets. Now he was versed in that. He was versed in using his imagination, which is backed up by the laws. With God, all things are possible. But we kind of don't feel it's our imagination and our thinking. We feel that God have to come down somewhere and some string coming from high or something, and then drop it first. Not realizing that man, made in God's image, our imaging faculty, we are to use it productively, healthily, to see those things that we want, not to concentrate on what we are currently experiencing. Because whatever we are now experiencing happened a while ago. Whatever state we are living in now, we saw those things. Whether wittingly, because some of it is not, we just careless. We just let into our minds whatever people, whatever is around, whatever the prevailing view. Sometimes it's not that we are bad people, negative people. We're trying our best. But we are not aware that eternal vigilance is the price of success in whatever field. Whether it is truth, whatever it is, we have to be eternally vigilant. And we know Jesus the Christ said our enemies are of our own making. He says it's not what goes in, it is what comes out that defiles a man. So you're not thinking whether eating pork, eating this, or anything like it. It's not what you're eating, but it is the thought of what you're eating and what it is doing, and those imaging faculties. That is important. That is the food actually that we are chewing on all of the time. So, this imagination, we talk about a lot about it. Eric Butterworth, in one of his talks, he spoke about an experiment with some basketball players. And there were two groups of players. One group was required to practice physically every day on the court, and the other group, whom he referred to as Imagineers, they were to go through the paces, but only in their minds and in their mind's eye. So they were not out there physically doing anything, but they had to go through the games in their minds. And he said at the end of the experiment, there was very little difference in the way those who practice physically all the time, how they were able to perform, as against what he called the Imagineers, how they were able to perform. And we know now in sports psychology and all of that, people go to sleep with tapes and all of that, building up their subconscious, having images of people who succeed. And they film with Serena Williams and Venus Williams, recently King Richard. Their father was a really good example of seeing beyond the circumstances, because he just insisted that those two girls could be great. And he went through a lot of hardship, a lot of no's, a lot of turning down, but what we said in the scripture, God will make a way, always, in the desert, in the barren, because with God it has already been created. There is nothing impossible to God, but we figure it have to have this condition, it have to have this person, it have to, and maybe in the physical you might need them, but they will come. God will open the way, just as this story of Neville Goddard, when he went, God opened the way through him, insisting that this man was shortchanging the guy. God will send what has to be, what is required for us, but we have to believe it. We have to put more faith. Even if we have a little doubt, which we should try to overcome. But if you put more faith, it's like a scale. Where are we putting our balance? If you have more faith than doubt, well, the faith will carry us through. And whatever we pronounce, whatever we see, that will happen. And there is another story that I will refer to, and this is a story told by Frederick Douglass. Frederick Douglass said he knew a child whose parents died when he was 6 years old. He was a slave, and he had no one to care for him. He slept on a dirt floor in a hovel, and in cold weather, he would crawl into a meal bag, head foremost, and leave his feet in the ashes to keep them warm. Often he would roast an ear of corn and eat it to satisfy his hunger. Many times he crawled under the barn or stable and secured eggs, which he would roast in the fire and eat. Schools were unknown to him. He learned to spell from an old Webster spelling book and to read and write from posters on cellars and barn doors, while boys and men, some boys and men, helped him. He would then preach, the same person will then preach and speak, and soon he became well known. He became presidential elector, United States Marshal, United States Recorder, a diplomat, and accumulated some wealth. He wore broadcloth and did not have to divide crumbs with dogs under the table. And that boy was Frederick Douglass. So he was giving the story of himself. And Frederick Douglass, if you read his story as autobiographies and so well known, what they would call African American. And what does this demonstrate to us? Very often we see the end, and that is what we must see for ourselves. We have to see the end. But sometimes when we see the end for other people, we doubt, oh, they must get it some way, they didn't get that right, some dishonest means we feel when we see what people, what we may call, oh, they reach, they arrive. But we do not think about the hardships that they would have undergone or the mental discipline and the imaging that is required to be a success of whatever kind. We don't need to, it doesn't matter how we define success. But all of us, God created us in His image, after His likeness, to have dominion. The dominion is over our thoughts, our imaging faculties, our lives. And we must stop complaining. Because when we are complaining, we are seeing more of what we are in, rather what we want to be like and the circumstances we want. And it's not, it's easy to complain, yes, you might have a lot of reasons to complain. Who doesn't? But the decision as to whether we will complain or not is entirely our own. And if we accept that God is good all the time, it does not matter that that the time that we are seeking has not yet arrived. We have to accept in our mind's eye that it is so now. And that is the only way that we can overcome all of the seeming circumstances and the trials and tribulations, whether for ourselves or for our entire community. So during this month of June, our imagination, I encourage us each to take one little area of our lives that we would like to see some improvement in. It could be a character trait, it could be financial, whatever it is. Whether we're too addicted to TV, whether we're reading too much papers. And that's the next thing. People always complain about the papers and the TV. But nobody holding a gun to us to say, watch this, watch that, read that, read that. But some people, that's how their life is. Because it's a habit. Man is a creature of habit. So we're in the habit of get up, we drink, or whatever we do, and then we sit down with the papers or we look at the TV. Not the positive, encouraging stuff. You might look at some of that, yes, but how much of the rest of the day are we steeped in? And it's not that we have to become what we call a goody two-shoes, but you definitely have to, we have to cultivate our minds and our imaging faculties just as we would a precious garden. Those who love flowers, when you plant your roses and whatever, you're tending to them, you're taking all the weeds. We have weeds in our minds. We have weeds in our imagination. Some of us, regrettably, always imagining the worst. And many of the things we imagine never come to pass. But we spend the time, the same time we think of imagine, it's the same reaction our bodies would secure the same type of negative, whether it is fluids or whatever. That because we're living that kind of existence. But we can live a happy, carefree existence as well. Not that you have to pay your bills and this and that. You pay your bills because you're using the electricity, so why are you so vexed if you have to pay your electricity bill? You're using water whenever it comes. So we have to pay for the water. So, the point is, we have been given dominion. Not only have we been given dominion, but we are made in the image and likeness of God. So what we are seeking after is not something that we cannot achieve. We are already made in that image and likeness. But we have some work to do. We have to keep ourselves in line with the image and likeness of God, whether through our prayers or affirmations or whatever. But we have our role to play, and I encourage us during this month of June, and of course, not only when June ends, you shouldn't say, well, I put away my magic imagination. No, because we have it with us all the time. So let us take one little area and see how best we can address it positively and see what results may come from that. We always have to be about our Father's business. We always have to remind ourselves, what is that to you? Follow thou you. So let us cultivate the power and vision on accurate mental imaging according to the perfect concept or pattern held in the minds of God for every part of life. So it is for every part of life we have to hold the perfect image and likeness. We no longer can have miserable opposition, government this, race that, the other. It is for every part of life. We have a responsibility to show and to image the perfect pattern that was created for that life. And so let us now have a little time of reflection, knowing that with man it is impossible, but with God all things are possible. Our imagination is the chisel to mold our inner thought kingdom, because we know there must be a marriage of thought and fear. And the imaging faculty, when we see ourselves as God has created us and as He has created man, we will be well on the way to bringing the kingdom of heaven, which is everywhere, into manifestation in our lives, in our world, in Trinidad and Tobago, and throughout the globe. There is in each and every one of us the perfect pattern. Let us cling to that perfect pattern. Ourselves, for our loved ones, and for all those with whom we come into contact. Perfect God, perfect man, perfect universe. Perfect God, perfect man, perfect universe. Perfect God, perfect man, perfect universe. Let us say this together 3 times. Perfect man, perfect God, perfect God, perfect man, perfect universe. Perfect God, perfect man, perfect universe. Perfect God, perfect man, perfect universe. If you will, in that perfection can there be any imperfection. There is just no room for imperfection. So let us say together the Lord's Prayer as we have come to the end of our message. Our Father, art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done on earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us our trespasses, as we forgive those who trespass against us. And leave us not in temptation, but deliver us from evil. For thine is the kingdom, the power, and the glory, forever and ever. Amen.